What if I told you that right now, hidden somewhere in your home, maybe in an old drawer, maybe in a dusty jar of loose change, there's a coin that could silently protect your family's drinking water for the next 100 years. No filter, no chemicals, no electricity, just a coin. And the people who run the water treatment industry have spent decades making sure you never find out about it. Stay with me for the next few minutes, because by the end of this video, you are going to look at your water tank and your coin collection completely differently. I want you to stop for a second and think about the last time you actually questioned what is growing inside your water storage tank. Not the water that comes out of the tap, the tank itself, the walls, the bottom, the standing water that sits there for hours, sometimes days before you ever draw from it. Because here is what most people do not know, and what the water treatment companies are absolutely counting on you never finding out. Bacteria does not need much to survive. It needs moisture, a surface to cling to, and time. Your water tank gives it all three every single day. But there is a solution, and it is not a $300 filter system. It is not a subscription service. It is not a chemical treatment you pour in every month. It is a coin, a specific kind of coin, one that certain families in rural America have been dropping into their water cisterns for over 150 years. And the science explaining exactly why it works was not discovered by some startup lab last year. It was formally documented in the late 1800s by a Swiss scientist, confirmed by Penn State researchers, and then, quietly, deliberately, pushed out of public conversation when the money stopped following the science. Before I go any further, if you're watching this and you want to keep recovering knowledge like this, the kind of practical wisdom that powerful industries would rather you never find, hit subscribe right now and leave a quick comment below. Tell me, do you have an old coin jar sitting somewhere in your house? Because the answer might change what you do this weekend. I read every single comment, and this community deserves to know the truth. So let us get into it. The metal is silver, and before you roll your eyes and think this sounds like folklore, I need you to understand something. Silver is not just a pretty metal. It is one of the most uniquely lethal substances on Earth, but only to bacteria. To humans, at the concentrations we are talking about, it is completely harmless. In fact, the EPA itself has an approved safety threshold for silver in drinking water, and the amount released by a single coin sitting at the bottom of a tank is somewhere between 5 and 10 times lower than that limit. So this is not fringe science. This is chemistry. This is documented physics. And it has been used by some of the most advanced engineering teams in human history, including NASA. Here is the mechanism. When silver metal comes into contact with water, it releases a slow, steady stream of positively charged ions. Those ions are attracted to a specific type of protein, found in the cell walls of bacteria. One tiny ion, released from the surface of a single coin, can kill thousands of bacterial cells before it eventually settles back to the bottom as inert metal. The coin does not dissolve, it does not deplete, it does not expire. A single properly chosen coin can protect your water tank for decades. This phenomenon even has a scientific name, the oligodynamic effect. It was formally described in 1893 by a Swiss botanist named Carl Wilhelm von Nageli, who discovered that trace concentrations of certain metals, silver in particular, could destroy single-celled organisms at levels so dilute they should not logically have any effect at all. He measured silver-killing bacteria at 1 part per billion. To help you picture that scale, imagine one single drop of liquid inside an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That is the concentration we are talking about, and it still works. Now here is where the history gets interesting, and a little uncomfortable. Silver was the primary antimicrobial tool in American medicine and agriculture for decades. Rural farming guides published by the United States Department of Agriculture in the 1880s explicitly recommended placing silver coins in cisterns and water storage tanks. Pennsylvania German communities, the Amish, the Mennonites, they had been doing this for generations before any government document ever acknowledged it. There are records of American pioneers heading west in the 1840s, putting silver coins into their wooden water barrels on the Oregon Trail. And those settlers consistently noted in their journals that the barrels with silver stayed drinkable for weeks, while unprotected barrels turned foul within days. Then something happened that changed everything. In 1928, penicillin was discovered, and within a single decade, the entire pharmaceutical world pivoted toward patentable antibiotic compounds. Silver, you see, cannot be patented. It is an element. It exists on the periodic table. No corporation can own it, trademark it, or charge you monthly for it. And so, despite documented studies at major American universities in the 1930s showing silver outperforming early antibiotics in controlled conditions, the research simply stopped being funded. It stopped being cited. It stopped being taught. Within one generation, an entire field of knowledge quietly vanished from medical textbooks. But it never vanished from Amish farms. And it never vanished from NASA. In the early 1960s, NASA engineers were designing the water purification system for long-duration space missions. They tested chlorine, rejected it because it outgassed dangerously in the sealed cabin. They tested iodine. It caused health problems over extended exposure. They tested ultraviolet sterilization. It worked at the point of treatment, but did nothing to prevent bacteria from growing back in storage. After extensive testing, they landed on a silver ion-based system, a generator that released approximately 50 parts per billion of silver ions into the water supply. That system flew on every Apollo mission. It kept astronauts alive, drinking stored water for weeks at a time in the most extreme conditions humans have ever attempted. And a modernized version of that exact same system is running right now on the International Space Station. Let me say that again. The water purification method that NASA relies on today for the most critical life-dependent water storage scenario in human history is based on the same principle as dropping a silver coin into a water tank. The same principle Amish families used on their farms 170 years ago. The same principle written up by university researchers who were then quietly ignored. And now, here's the most important part. Here's how you actually do this. You need a genuine silver coin, not silver-plated, not a modern coin with a silver appearance, a real high-purity silver coin. In the United States, any dime, quarter, or half-dollar minted before 1965 is made from 90% silver. That is the cutoff. 1964 and earlier. After that, the government switched to a copper-nickel alloy that carries zero antimicrobial properties. You can find pre-1965 coins at any coin shop, usually for just a few dollars above the current silver melt value. A single quarter from before 1965 contains enough silver to treat a standard 50-gallon water tank indefinitely. If you want to go further, a pre-1982 copper penny placed on the opposite side of the tank works in combination with silver through a different biological mechanism. The two metals attack bacteria through completely separate pathways, and together they are dramatically more effective than either metal alone. Before you drop the coin in, clean it gently with mild dish soap and warm water. No metal polish, no chemical cleaners, just soap, a soft cloth, and a thorough rinse. You want a clean metal surface with maximum contact area against the water. Then drop it to the bottom of the tank. Let it sit. Within about 72 hours at room temperature, the silver ion concentration in the water reaches a protective equilibrium. In colder conditions, give it up to 5 days. After that initial window, the protection is continuous. The coin self-regulates, releasing more ions when fresh water enters and slowing when the tank sits still. You do not stir it. You do not move it. You do not clean it again. The darkening that develops on the coin's surface over time is not a problem. It is actually evidence the process is working. That dark layer is a natural byproduct of the ionization chemistry, and it continues releasing fresh ions as the surface rebalances. One pre-1965 silver dollar handles up to 100 gallons. A quarter handles 50 gallons. For rain barrels, toilet tanks, water heater tanks, emergency storage drums, IBC totes, the same principle applies at the same ratios. Drop the coin in and walk away. For life. Here is the number that should stop you cold. The average American family spends somewhere between $700 and nearly $1,000 every single year on bottled water, filter cartridges, and water treatment products. Over a 30-year period of homeownership, that is close to $25,000, slowly drained into companies whose entire business model is built on the assumption that you will never learn what NASA has been doing in orbit since the Nixon administration. A pre-1965 silver coin costs between $5 and $40 depending on the denomination. It will still be doing its job in 21 and 25. In 22 to 25, it will outlast you, your children, and your grandchildren without ever needing a replacement part, a monthly shipment, or a subscription renewal. This is not about distrust of modern science. The science on silver is modern. It is documented, peer-reviewed, replicated, and in active use inside hospital burn units, neonatal ICUs, and the International Space Station. What was lost, what was deliberately allowed to disappear, was the public's access to that knowledge in its simplest, most affordable form. A form that cannot be monetized. A form that any ordinary person can use without a technician, without a plumber, without a permit. So here is what I want you to do right now. Go check that drawer, the one with the old change, the jar in the garage, your grandfather's coin collection sitting in a box somewhere. Look for the date, 1964 or earlier. If you find one, you're holding something that civilizations from ancient Phoenicia to the Apollo program understood was worth protecting. A piece of practical knowledge that powerful industries have spent decades quietly bearing, not because it does not work, but precisely because it works too well to allow a profit margin. Drop it in the tank this weekend. And then come back here and tell me in the comments what coin you found and where you found it. The best stories are going to be pinned right at the top of this comment section. Share this video with someone who owns a home, someone who stores water, someone who has been spending money every month on a problem that might already be solved by something sitting in their own house. Subscribe to Secret Verse if you want to keep pulling this kind of buried knowledge back into the light. Because what I just told you about silver is only one layer. Next time, I am going to show you a passive cooling method that reduces room temperature by over 15 degrees in summer. No electricity, no refrigerant, no machinery. And the engineering principle behind it was studied by the US military in 1943 and then quietly removed from public circulation. The reason it disappeared will sound familiar. The chain of real, practical human knowledge was never actually broken. It was just hidden. And you are the one bringing it back.